I wanted to talk to you today about a problem that you're very familiar with. It's the problem of people debating gun control who have no idea what they're talking about. You know what I mean. They come to the debate with passion and commitment, but they have no idea what the facts are. The trouble is, today that person is you. You've heard the debate. So-called red flag laws violate a gun owner's due process rights. It's almost the only argument you hear. It's a violation of our due process rights, everyone screams. It is not. Due process of law basically means that you will be notified of an action against you, and you will receive an opportunity to be heard in court. Nowhere does it say that that notice and that opportunity has to be prior notice and opportunity. You just have to get notified and then have your day in court. And every single one of these so-called red flag laws offers both. You get notified when the cops show up to take your guns, and at some time in the future, you'll be given an opportunity to go before a judge and make your case. How do I know that due process doesn't have to be prior to whatever the action the cops take? Because I've spent a night in jail with not one single judge getting involved. I was speeding on Interstate 95 in Dillon County, South Carolina, and the cop took exception to the fact that I was doing 104 in a 65. For various reasons too complicated to get into, I was taken in his 5.0 Mustang down to the county lockup and invited to remain overnight until my squad leader arrived the next morning to pay my speeding ticket and get me sprung. Why did the cop take me straight to jail without a trial first? 2 words. Probable cause. He had probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed. It was the readout on his radar gun. He had all the power in the world to arrest me and take me against my will to a place where I could be secured until my ticket was paid. What do they call it when someone comes before a judge and swears that you're in violation of the law? Probable cause. And what's going to happen when the judge hears probable cause that you've broken the law? He's going to issue a warrant authorizing officers to enforce the law. You might say that so-called red flag laws offer more due process than ordinary crimes because the cops can't just take guns first and then discuss it with the judge later. You want more? What happens when a person with whom you used to cohabitate goes to the judge and says that you're a danger, that you've been stalking them or threatening them or showing up at their home and making a pest of yourself? The judge will issue a restraining order, generally right on the spot. You can go later and fight the restraining order, but until you win that case, you have to abide by it. Not one single court has ever overturned restraining orders on the basis that they lack due process. Why? Because they have due process. So stop saying that so-called red flag laws are a violation of your due process rights. They aren't, and you'll look like an idiot when you try to make that case in front of a judge. Worse than that, however, is the fact that arguing due process is completely unpersuasive. Let me be perfectly clear so you cannot misunderstand me. No one gives a shit about your due process rights. No one. Even if it actually was a due process violation, no actual human being cares. No one is going to be moved by your argument that when someone tells the cops that you're a nutcase, they should delay taking your guns until you've gotten a full trial first. No one cares. Fortunately, there's a much better argument to be made. So-called red flag laws just won't work. Imagine, if you will, the absolute best case scenario. Everything goes exactly according to plan, and the law is followed not only in its technical details, but also in spirit. Let's imagine a gun owner, Joe. Joe is crazy. Bug nuts crazy. It's obvious to everyone who meets him that he's not just crazy, but dangerous crazy. He's obviously a danger to himself and everyone around him due to his lunacy. Martha, his neighbor, reports the fact that Joe is bug nuts crazy to the appropriate authorities. Martha does so in good faith and gives them all the relevant facts with video and documentary evidence to prove her contention that Joe needs to lose his firearms. Officer Steve takes the report, along with all the documentary evidence, does his own investigation, and determines that Joe is so far off the beam that immediate action is required. Officer Steve reports everything to Judge Sally, who, after taking testimony from neighbor Martha and Officer Steve, along with reading all the supporting documentation and watching the videos, makes her ruling that Joe is, in fact, nuttier than squirrel poo, and in accordance with the state's red flag law, issues a warrant to Officer Steve authorizing him to seize Joe's firearms. Officer Steve takes the SWAT team over to Joe's house, but in a tremendous bit of good luck, catches Joe milking his mailbox, unarmed, and completely surprised at the attention he is receiving from Officer Friendly and the SWAT team. Officer Steve conducts a thorough search and recovers every single firearm in the house, tags them, bags them, and places them in his police cruiser. And then everyone gets back into their respective vehicles and drives away, leaving Bugnuts Crazy Joe to go back to being dangerous to himself and others with his kitchen knives, a gallon of gasoline he uses for his lawnmower, and the poisonous chemicals basically everyone has in the cupboard under their sink. Does that make any sense to you? The absolute best case scenario where not one single thing goes wrong, and the result is the guns get arrested, and the dangerous crazy person is free to continue being crazy and dangerous. No one with a lick of sense would have written a law like this and then tried to claim it was designed to improve public safety. No one with the brains that God gave a flatworm would read this law and imagine that it would improve public safety at all. It's legalized swatting. It's a wonderful way for your anti-gun family members or work colleagues to get the cops to kick down your door, shoot your dog, and take your gun. But it's not even remotely about public safety. If the so-called red flag laws were really about making the public safer, they would be written so that if someone was ruled to be a danger to himself and others, the cops would grab the dangerous person, not the guns that the dangerous person happened to own. If the dangerous person is in a jail or in a mental hospital, no one has to care where his guns are. I'm begging you, stop making the due process argument. Not only is it factually incorrect, it's completely unpersuasive. Make this argument instead. If someone is so dangerous that you can't trust him with a gun, then you can't trust him without a custodian. Take the dangerous people before a judge, prove they're dangerous, and then get them the help they need. Don't be a monster and dump dangerous people onto the street and pretend you've created public safety by arresting their guns.